Good evening. 7 o'clock on the dot. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm the chair, Ben Philbrick, and I'm going to start on my right tonight. We have Andy Meek as an alternate, Marjorie Selinger, Gary Belkey. We have the board consists of Lynn Conway, myself, Fred Dykeman, Chuck Sheehan, and Ryan Deasy. And tonight, the first item is to accept the December 7th minutes.
Make a motion to approve the December 3rd. Oh, wait a minute, I wasn't there.
I have a feeling you
I'll
weren't
make a
there.
motion to approve the
I'll
December
abstain
7th.
from that one.
Make a motion to approve the December 7th minutes
Thank
as
you.
written.
Okay. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Keith, I think it's on to you.
Sure, item 5B of the commission reports. 5B1 is consideration of a pre-moratorium cannabis establishment application policy. So the point of this discussion is that at the last meeting, the commission decided to have a regulation amendment to have a temporary moratorium on cannabis applications to give us time to come up with a regulation as for where in town we want these sort of things. Now, because you have to go through the regulation amendment process, this moratorium won't actually be in effect for several weeks because we have to hold a public hearing on it, which would likely be the beginning of March, let's say. So until that time, we're just subject to the state statute that says that we have to treat any applications that might come in similar to other land uses. So the point of this proposed policy here is just to establish what that means, what similar land uses are to some of these things. If you have a cannabis retailer who wants to come to town, when we look in the zoning regulations, do we say it's the same as retail, or do we say it's the same as a liquor store, which requires a special use permit at least? So that's the point of this recommended policy. On page 10 of the staff report, I spelled out a recommended policy as far as the types of licenses the state issues and recommended closest similar uses in the zoning regulations. The one that is probably the most important is the cannabis recreational retailer. In this recommended policy is to treat them similar to off-premises liquor sales, like a liquor store, which they're allowed by special use permit in most commercial zones. And now when we come up with the real regulation amendment, we might decide something different or limit it to certain zones. But this is only for the next few weeks until the moratorium is in effect. So what I came up with just as a recommendation is, like I said, the retailers, similar to liquor sales. Same for hybrid retailer. Hybrid retailer is medical marijuana sales plus recreational marijuana sales. A number of these, cultivator license, micro-cultivator, product manufacturer, and food and beverage manufacturer. I figured the closest thing is likely, in our regulations, a distillery. Distilleries are only allowed in the Heritage Mill District by special permit. The Heritage Mill District is basically only at the Mechanic Street mills. Product packager license, the closest thing just seemed to be packing, which is allowed in certain commercial industrial zones. And one which really doesn't have a close use in zoning is delivery service or transporter license. This is a business that can deliver recreational cannabis to consumers and basically transport the stuff. seem to be nothing better than office use permitted in most commercial zones. But going forward, if anyone does apply, it's likely to be the retailer license, which is the one that would have the biggest impact. So if this policy is okay, I'd recommend a motion to have this be a temporary policy until the moratorium's in effect.
Any feedback or questions from anybody?
So Kate, I recall last meeting when we discussed this, I thought we were talking a February time frame because we had to have the moratorium put in place because we could get it on the public hearing for February, one of the February meetings.
Yeah, looking at the notification requirements, it might be the first meeting in March, which is March 1st. Because of the notifications to the state that we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Have they been notified? What are the notification requirements?
I believe it's 35 days prior to the hearing.
So have they been notified so far?
I believe so, yeah, because we just submitted the application as new business for tonight's meeting. So I didn't do it myself, so I'm not 100% sure if it's gone out yet.
And this is a bridge.
Yeah.
So the re-
I
okay.
understand, but, I just, again, I think it's important, to follow up and make sure that everything that needs to be done is done quickly. I mean, the whole point is to have a moratorium so we can sit down and consider it, holistically. And I would hate to see something, just slip in because of administrative issues.
They need to get the state license as well, right? Get okay by the state.
They would have to. It seems like they don't need to get
Comes first.
with the state they need to get first a provisional license, followed by a final license or whatever the term is. But it appears that they don't need to get a provisional license first before applying to us.
But we could always make it subject to permission of the state
Right. Which,
with delay.
no, if they came before us and we said, let's just take an example, you can have it on XYZ, provided you get, and that, we did that on February 15th, when we say, provided you get a state licensure, the decision was made on February 15th. We can't, we have to make the decision when they come in. Unless for some reason we want to say, well, we're going to delay our decision.
Right.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to follow up on that because I do think that it's important to make sure that whatever paperwork needs to go to whomever that is done and it's not just sitting and we're not having this conversation March 1st.
Oh yeah, we send it out to
Yeah.
the state.
And then my other question is, what are the other options? So you kind of listed, this is your suggestion, but are there options?
There are. I mean, for the retailer, instead of considering them similar to liquor sales before the moratorium, we could just say that we'll treat them similar to regular retail, which means a special use permit wouldn't be required. They'd be allowed in pretty much every commercial zone except the industrial ones. So it would be a lot more permissive and a lot less oversight. At least treating it similar to liquor sales kicks it into being a special use permit. So we'd have to have a public hearing and have more oversight and some more discretion on behalf of the board. And with some of the other ones, like the ones that are closer to microcultivator, brewery is another similar use, which in zoning I think is allowed in maybe one other zone compared to distillery, which is only allowed in one industrial zone.
So basically, what you're saying is you chose the most limited category for each of the various activities.
I did because, yeah, we're just trying to get to the moratorium.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question that's more directed towards what the different licensing types permit? I'm looking at the delivery service license. Just to be clear, this is a license that will allow an entity to deliver something that has been purchased from a retail licensed entity. So I guess what I'm saying is this isn't like a delivery/retail service.
Right, yeah, it looks like this is for just the delivery of it.
So it would be like a third-party delivery service.
Right, yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Ben?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that we need to take some time to think about this, right? Yeah. So I would suggest that we accept this application
The recommendations.
for the moratorium.
Yeah, for the moratorium, correct.
And the sooner we get it in place, the better.
Right. So you like this as a bridge
Yeah.
for now?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Do you think 6 months is long enough?
Yes. I mean,
Consider this as carefully as you have to consider it.
well, I do. I mean, if we can't figure it out in 6 months.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, I think, and your workload is such that we can have, Keith, it wouldn't overpower you in a 6 months time frame.
No, no.
And would you like us tonight to pick and choose from this list, or you think we should just go
Just adopt
ahead
the whole list.
and accept the whole list?
You know, I would think just accepting the whole,
Yeah, that's what
Policy.
I'm inclined to do. Okay.
And Keith, just to clarify, I think last meeting you also said that if we get to a 6-month point and for whatever reason we weren't able to come up with a proposal that was going to work, we could just extend, oh,
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt. We can't finish this out. I'm sorry.
thank you, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
We can just extend it at that time, correct? You don't need to go through a public hearing or anything, you just extend it.
when I wrote it up as a 6-month moratorium. So it would take another regulation amendment to keep it going. We have to go through that process again.
So is there a way, and again, I agree that we should be able to do this in 6 months, but we all understand how timelines seem to be out the table for a lot of things. Can you write it so that strategically you don't have to go back and just say, targeting 6 months, between 6 months and not to exceed X? And we'll target the 6 months, certainly. I just don't want us to get caught in another,
Would it be
Well-
possible to write it for a year and then repeal it ahead of time?
It would. See, it's already been written and submitted. So,
That's 6 months.
yeah, it's saying 6 months. So, I mean, in theory, yeah, I guess if you hold a public hearing on it, just like if it was some private person's regulation amendment, you might be able to say, actually, let's do it longer. So, you probably would be able to extend it longer if during the public hearing you felt it should be longer.
But it's a pretty easy question. I mean, we've had an expression from the town that they would like to allow this, so it's just a question. I mean, I suppose we could say no, but I think probably be a bad thing to do. And so what we are trying to decide is where and in what kind of configuration. And it seems to me if we can't figure that out in 6 months, we need a new planning and zoning commission.
It'll be interesting to see how it all goes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
My concern is looking at some, I've looked at some regulations in other towns, like Glastonbury and some other towns that, compare in some ways to this town. And there does seem to be a lot to consider. And I just want to make sure that we give ourselves enough time. So I agree with Fred that we should be able to get it done. A 6-month moratorium really isn't 6 months because you have to have this thing in the can, ready to go to public hearing, just like this one, 35 days in advance.
Right.
The moratorium is eventually going to lapse. So you're not really giving yourself 6 months. You're giving yourself just a little over 4 months to get this done. And we should be able to do it, but there's a lot to consider when you look at the regulations that other towns that have really been thoughtful about this have considered incorporating in their regulations. I'm not going to try to go through it tonight because that's not, that's for the public hearing. I like this list that you prepared. I think that it takes care of all of the license types. It underscores that some of these things are allowed in industrial zones, and that's why I thought the industrial zone should remain in play, at least, for consideration, to be ruled out in the public hearing process. And I think it's very comprehensive. It takes like things and compares them to the different licenses. Liquor sales is the sale of a controlled substance. Distillery is a regulated industry. I think they're good comparisons, and I think it's a good interim policy because of that. And I'm in favor.
Can I get a motion to accept Keith's?
You have a motion to accept.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks. Item 5B2, preliminary discussion of Town of Stonington Affordable Housing Plan adoption process. Several months ago, we talked about the process of adopting the affordable housing plan that we had developed. The commission wanted to hold a workshop with the firm Goldman & York. So we had that presentation by Dr. Don Poland, who was here. One of the things we talked about was how to adopt the plan. The state statutes now say that towns have to adopt an affordable housing plan by June 1st of this year. So one way or another, by June 1st, we have to hold a public hearing and adopt a plan. In the past, we talked about how to do that. We could just hold a hearing, vote to adopt the plan, and of course you can make changes to the plan. We also talked about the possibility of adopting it as an appendix to the plan of conservation and development to give it some more weight. At this point, with a due June 1st, with other things like cannabis coming down the road, it probably would be best to do it the more simple way, have a public hearing sometime, probably in March also, and discuss the plan and have a vote on adopting the plan. We can do it subject to Mr. Poland's availability, assuming we want him here to present his plan to the public as we get public input. But that was my point in bringing this up, just to touch back on that issue of how to adopt the affordable housing plan again, and talk about a possible time frame for doing it.
I guess I'm leaning towards having a public hearing sooner
Yeah.
rather than later and
I agree.
keep moving on it.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about cannabis in the first meeting in March, maybe the second meeting in March?
That was
We-
Scheduled for the second.
Right.
Yeah. We could try for that. I'll have to see if Dr. Poland's available
Yeah.
on that date,
You know,
but
I thought it'd be good to have him here during that public hearing.
Definitely.
Yeah. yeah.
Okay. Meaning he can answer questions far more
Yeah.
knowledgeably than myself and anybody else, I think, in the room.
yeah, we could aim for that.
Has the commission itself even looked at the plan and discussed it at all?
I've looked at it numerous times.
But I haven't heard a public discussion
I
of
see.
the commission before
Yep.
you even put something to hearing that you haven't even had an input into.
And the public hearing can be that opportunity also. You know, you'll hear
Right.
from the public
Then we can make
about certain things, and yeah, you can make amendments to the plan at that time also.
I guess that's what I was thinking of, is having that as the large discussion. I mean, I haven't heard any big issues from the commission either way on it.
Yeah, and that workshop seemed to be that opportunity, and there didn't seem to be many comments.
And remember that, you know, just because the public hearing is then, we still have how many days? You know, we don't have to make a
Yeah, we don't have to make a
decision.
decision.
Right.
You know, we can have multiple.
Well, it's not an application where you're bound to those normal timeframes, but as long as it's done by June 1st.
So it can be put on the agenda.
By then, or just voted upon by then?
Yeah, really just voted upon by then.
So yeah, you can keep the hearing open and keep discussion.
So should there be a way to educate the public before a public hearing so that they,
Good idea.
is there some way we can get this out to people in town so that they understand what we're going to be talking about and what the issues might be?
Yeah, you know, we'll advertise the hearing, and we have had public hearings on this too before it got to the commission.
Yeah.
We had a public input session at the Velvet Mill, I think it was last summer. We had a virtual meeting when the plan was prepared also.
They were sparsely attended, but it was out in the public's knowledge that it was happening.
Mhm.
Can I ask, Keith, is the plan available to the public, like on the town's website? Something that
Um,
they can see?
I know it was on the town's website when we were having these
Right,
hearings. I'm not
yeah.
sure if it's still up there, but we can easily put it back up
We
there.
should put it out, you know, good idea. Here's somebody else.
Well, I think it's an excellent question. And I wonder if there's anything more that can be done. You know, to the point of, you know, you put it in the paper, it's part of our agenda, but is there something else that can be done beyond that? You know, a statement saying that, you know, this has now been posted and, you know, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and you know,
Something separate?
sometimes for public meetings of that nature, we will put out a press release that hopefully newspapers will pick up on and write something on it.
I'm thinking that's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we need to either, you know, certainly you're not going to print it in the paper, but you need to make sure that it is accessible on the website with exactly where it is, and to have that kind of a statement in the paper, I think would be excellent.
Right,
You know,
right.
my concern
A month
is
ahead of
that,
time.
you know, we had these meetings, these public hearings, meetings, and as we said, it was sparsely attended, and I'm not sure that's for lack of interest. I think there are other mitigating circumstances given the time, so I just want to make sure that it's well understood.
Yeah, we'll try to get people out.
Was there something you need us to vote on, or?
No, just that general sense of direction with it. With that, item 5D are the administrative review items. 5D1, request amendment of PZ 2124 SD and CAM, Oakwood Avenue LLC. Approval stipulation number 4, to as-built plans for relocated sewer line shall be provided to the town prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy of Lot 3, which is 17 Oakwood Ave. So with this application, this refers to the 3-lot subdivision on Oakwood Ave, which was approved by the commission on October 5th. The plans have been recorded now. In your report, you had a letter from project engineer Craig Fettis looking to modify the stipulation of approval number 4. That stipulation stated, as-built plans for relocated sewer line shall be provided to the town prior to the issuance of a zoning permit for the construction of Lot 3. If you remember, the house was going to be built over a sewer line that provides service to a house on Johnson Street in the back. So the stipulation on there said, first you have to move the sewer line, provide us with an as-built survey showing the sewer line was moved before we'll give you a permit to build the house for 17 Oakwood. So the requested language is, as-built plans for the relocated sewer line shall be provided to the town prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy for that lot, to give them the ability to do both at once. And I think I'll turn it over to Mr. Fettis here, who's representing the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Greg Fettis with Fettis Engineering, an office at 70 Essex Street in Mystic, Connecticut, representing Oakwood Avenue LLC. So the stipulation is relatively simple. I think the reasons behind it, I think it kind of slipped by us in the approval process, the stipulation of having that moved prior to actually granting the zoning permit. We are going to need to basically develop these 2 lots together, and there'll be some traffic back and forth. We'd kind of much rather provide Mr. McCormick, which is at 12 Johnson Street, to put that relocated sewer line in when we're done traveling back and forth, so we know that there's no potential damage to it. There potentially could be damage to the existing line, we understand that, but we'd rather, during construction, if we're going to damage that, we can repair it, it'll be a temporary patch, then at the end of the day, before we get our CO, we'll put the new line in, there will be no more traffic over it, and additionally, we do have to get into the street to do that line. January's not the greatest time to do that. We understand that's probably a little bit of our fault. We did try to get this going earlier. This has been a long road with the subdivision, just from, we had an approval, we didn't file our Mylars on time. We got kind of put through the review process again with different staff and so forth. But anyway, the bottom line is, we would much rather not do the sewer line relocation until kind of the major truck traffic back and forth in the area is completed. And we understand, that if we do damage it, we will notify WPCA, and take all the regular precautions regarding that. But we also have kind of when we do the relocation, we have to tie in the new service to 17. A lot of that work is in the right of way. We don't want to do that in now, January. We want to do it in March or April when the weather's a little bit better.
So you propose to develop lots 1 and 2, and even 3, all the way up to the point where you're looking for a certificate of occupancy?
Yeah, so, well, 3 is the only one that the sewer line affects, so it comes across in this area approximately. We need to relocate it between lots 2 and 3.
You're going to have to do that before you start building
Well,
3.
Right.
On lot 3, right?
I don't think it affects, it does show a little bit coming across the corner here of the garage area, but I think we can do the whole thing without actually relocating it until we get that constructed.
Wasn't the proposed line to go right on the border line? Is my memory-
Yeah, so the proposed line is to go in between.
Yeah, the lot line there, yeah.
Which-
But we do need access between the two because the grading extends across between the two lots.
But you'd use Schedule 80 regardless, wouldn't you?
It's not Schedule 80, it's actually, the spec for WPCA is SDR 35.
But why not go with heavier duty if you're having heavier trucks?
Well, we're trying to avoid driving heavy trucks over anything new that we do. I just think it makes the most sense, but
What's the depth of cover on the sewer?
what was the question?
What's the depth of cover on the sewer?
Just double check at the. Well, I know the main, I don't know the depth of the lateral. I know the main is at 8 to 9 feet deep. Typically, for the new service, we're gonna have to go out to the main and we're gonna have to put a Y in or a saddle, I'm not sure, whatever WPCA requires. So we're gonna be down at that depth and then we'll come up at a 45 to a reasonable depth in the right of way.
Have less than 2 feet of cover on it?
No.
So a few things I should mention with this is we've been back and forth with the WPCA director. So his opinion on it is that he's not in support of the change without more information from the developer. The zoning official has the same opinion. The stipulation basically came from her comments on the subdivision.
So what kind of information?
Yeah, what additional information are they asking for?
Basically, how the developer is exactly going to build it. How he's going to build the house with the whole line there. The sewer line to the rear house has been damaged and rebuilt. The developer quickly fixed it. But I think that's...
So could we approve this with the stipulation that all those i's get dotted and t's crossed? I mean, we do that all the time with the town engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't we do that here?
Yeah, I think you could. They would have to work closely with him anyway,
Yeah.
to get their permit to hook
The
up.
alternative is to see this again.
Well,
Yeah,
the alternative is to leave it the way it is, as it was written. Have them gated now, right up on the borderline.
But
That's their problem on construction. If they crush it, they gotta fix it.
Yeah, my concern is that if there already has been damage to a line of a house that's being occupied, right? So, seems like you'd be more careful if you were putting in a new line, and you would have a less risk of something happening to the neighbor's sewer line. Who left it as
They're putting in a new one
right.
at the beginning.
Mhm.
Yep, and they make 1-inch plates to put over things like that too, right?
I mean, I guess that's what it comes down to, is what's more risky. And, I'm not knowledgeable enough to say what's more risky. And I've spoken to the homeowner in back, whose main concern is just that he doesn't lose his service, whichever way.
And the existing line's already been damaged once, correct?
Right.
The old one.
So,
Point of information, this is on the homeowner, if you'll indulge me, Mr. Philip, members.
Okay, would you come on up, please?
On December 10th,
Your name and address, please, sir?
I'm sorry, my name is Brian McCormick, 12 Johnson Street.
Thank you.
And just point of information, because I'm an observer, but I have an interest in this since it's the line that needs to be fully functional. On December 10th, as Greg's aware, and his client, during an excavation of the foundation pit for Lot 3, is it? On number 17 Oakwood, I got a call that they had hit the existing sewer line and to shut everything down until it was fixed. Now, they fixed it in quick order, to the developer's credit, or to the excavator's credit. I had this, he texted me, he called me several times, I raced home. Pipe is broken and he repaired it. I didn't watch the whole process of repair, because it's not, I have a life going on like all you do as well. On December 15th, there was another issue. Got another call, text, email, I was in Groton, and I had to go back in my voicemail that the sewer, because of the excavation, had to be rerouted again, which is, it's kind of disturbing to me that this has happened twice, because there's a pipe in the ground, an existing sewer line, and that should be known before anything occurs. If it could mean that I would be standing here going into detail and coming up to speed in quick order, I had 4 days from seeing that letter to come up to speed on everything sewer and show up here tonight and provide my perspective to the commission. So I don't, I'll express my disappreciation for a lack of transparency in the process, as opposed to being involved in a reactive process. And you can see this has been very stressful for us to get calls saying you have no sewer. That's called uninhabitable, according to regulations. And I don't want to face that again. So the issue is twofold. It's the protection of the existing sewer that has been patched into a rerouted sewer twice, and the protection of the main sewer. And I'm not an engineer to know enough to be able to tell anyone what those treatments would be to mitigate that if this were to go out to a C of O trigger. And that's my issue. That's where I stand. I'm very upset by this whole process. And you would be too. And any of you would be very upset by this, going through this process. That's all. That's the information that I have to share with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I spent a lot of time, as you know, in this industry, as the CEO of the MDC, the largest sewer authority in Connecticut. And it would seem to me, and I hate to cause you delays, but it seems to me that if our WPCA director is not happy with this, that, and we have a resident whose wastewater service has been impacted by this, that the applicant really needs to go work this out with Doug Nettleton, the director, and come back to us with a plan that Doug is accepting. If Doug says he needs more information,
And the customer.
and we approve this tonight, he's gonna be back here again if somehow what Doug ultimately approves doesn't comply with what we've just approved. So it would seem to me that some additional staff work needs to be done. And I hate to send applicants back to the drawing board, I really do. But I don't think we have enough information tonight to really be sure that the sequence of actions that's here tonight is going to address this gentleman's concern, address my concerns, and address Doug Nettleton's concerns. So I think what the applicant needs to do is work this out with Doug and come back with something that has Doug's endorsement.
Well, I thought Doug was happy with how the initial wordage, wasn't he, Keith?
Doesn't sound like Doug's happy with it.
No, I thought he was happy with the original.
The original, correct.
What we
He has
agreed
questions
on.
on what they're doing.
Right, yeah, he didn't support changing the stipulation.
Right.
Right.
So he likes it as is.
Well, I disagree with that. I think he did support the change. I think the recent events that Mr. McCormick just spoke about potentially changed his mind. So what happened was, first of all, I was unaware of everything that Mr. McCormick talked about. I was aware that the pipe was hit, and that was just recent for me. So the developer's excavator was out there getting the lot ready, hit the line, and my understanding is it was repaired expeditiously the first time around. And I think Mr. McCormick stated that. I was unaware of a rerouting, but that would be the plan that we would present to Doug Nettleton. I was unaware that he needed more information unless it was an email just recently, because the last email I saw,
Yeah,
it wasn't very specific about what he was looking for. But what we're gonna present to him is the rerouting of the line and still ask for the stipulation to be changed, so we can build the house, be 100% done with equipment in and around the house, and then relocate the line so it's fresh, undisturbed, and no chance of being damaged. That would be our plan. We think it's the best plan. I too have spent a lot of time doing sewers. That's where I got my first job, was here in Stonington for Cummings and Lafayette, doing sewers at Lord's Point and throughout Pawcatuck and so forth. So I spent a lot of time doing that myself. I think that the best way to go about it is what we're presenting, long-term for my client as well as ultimately Mr. McCormick, to have I wouldn't want to put the line in, relocate it, dig up the road in January or February, whenever we're going to be allowed to do that, and then have that go through the rest of the winter.
Mike, excuse me, where has it been relocated now? It's already been relocated once.
Well, but it's still tied into the road. It's still,
Yeah, right. but
so
it-
the only thing it did was, I'm guessing, I don't know for a fact, because I just heard about the relocating tonight, is that it was picked up somewhere and brought around the proposed house. But it's not out into the road or into the right of way.
I'm just a little confused. Are you the engineer?
Yeah.
And so aren't you supposed to be saying where these things are rerouted and everything? So.
I don't get involved in that level of,
with daily construction.
well, if I need to be, I am. Now, here I am, getting involved. So,
Yeah,
But-
I think the question I would have in line with Lynn's is, okay, you didn't even know there was an existing reroute already done,
no,
and it's not shown on the map, so you couldn't honestly say exactly where it is.
exactly no.
Okay, that's,
But I couldn't tell you exactly where the existing lateral is either. I'm just going by,
I'm just wondering with the
I'm
drawings.
going by old
drawings.
plan from the 80s showing the line where, the best guess where we think it is.
It seems to me like the potential for damage would be reduced by rerouting the sewer line before the construction. I understand that that means more interruptions on the road, but that would allow you to place it deep enough that even the heaviest vehicles are not going to impact it.
And everybody would know where it is.
And you know where it is then, no more surprises. So really, it seems the downside is having to dig into the road twice. But other than that, it seems like it would make everyone's lives a little less fraught,
Well, we know where it is now.
mostly.
Well, for the most part, yes, we know where it is now.
Yep.
Again, so we're going to be traveling between lots and 2 and 3 with heavy equipment. So we're going to be crossing a new line, depth, yeah, depending on, you could make it bulletproof, you could do plates, you can do numerous other things, but at some point, it's not going to be worth it. We're not going to go through that effort. And going into the road in January or February just does not make sense.
I agree with that.
So, I understand I'll not necessarily group myself in there, but mistakes were made with breaking the line, with relocating it, all that information, that's a bit of it's new information to me tonight, but I still think the best thing is if we're gonna potentially damage anything, I'd rather damage the old existing line there, fix it, keep it operational, and then give Mr. McCormick a fresh new line, tie it into the road in March or April.
Is this to drive costs down?
I think it's mostly practical, not cost-wise. We could go ahead and put the line in, as soon as we get approval. Or I guess we have approval, but we could go do the line this next week if we wanted to. It just doesn't make sense to do a new curb cut in January. But a new cut that's 9 feet deep in the middle of the road. So,
But that's, not doing that in January is cost related, correct?
it's not, well, separate of the cost, it's not practical you're not gonna restore the road in a fashion that's acceptable to me as an engineer, the WPCA, Public Works, and so forth. There's potential for, I don't know, frost heave, whatever. It's going to be a temporary patch for the months of January, February, March, till we get better weather and we get the asphalt plants open in April. So
You could delay the problem.
we could, you're right.
That's the cost, yeah, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
But we've already, again, some of it, our our fault, or the other, we've been put through the ringer on switching engineers and whatever. It was our fault. We didn't file the Mylars. We understand that. And we had a re-review from a different engineer and things changed and
Here we are.
here we are.
Well, I think those decisions are yours to make, whether you delay the project, or whether you go forward and cut twice. But our decision is just, are we happy with changing the plan?
Part of my concern about not relocating the pipe is if you didn't take a look at the way the repair was made, and maybe either the WPCA, then how do we know that that repair was done in the workmanlike way? And this poor guy doesn't get another call when he's trying to do his job, and his house lateral is again disconnected through no fault of his own. I guess I don't see, after having been in the same business you're in for years, the problem other than the asphalt plant issue, I agree, you can't get a good patch in January. It's not the ideal time of the year to do it. But leaving a temporary patch in place that no one's taken a look at, it doesn't give me great confidence, with regard to this alternate schedule. So I'm mildly concerned about that. I don't want to be unfair.
I understand.
But
I'm mildly concerned also.
the contractor that was out there hit the pipe and broke it to begin with. And it doesn't give you great confidence that something bad isn't going to happen out there again. So, and I agree with what you said. We really don't know exactly where any of these things are ever on old plants. Unless you use some sort of side scanning radar or something like that to locate pipes underground, you always run the risk of hitting something. But I feel more confident if the town had inspected the repair, and at least we were assured that the repair was done in a workmanlike way and service wasn't going to be interrupted again, because, again, as head of a large sewer agency, we used to deal with these things all the time. A sewer collapse and discontinuance of sanitary sewer service is a major inconvenience. And I want to try to come up with a plan that gives this gentleman the best chance that won't happen to him again. So,
Well, I could.
Without Doug's input, I'm really uncomfortable. I hate to say it. I'd rather wait a couple of weeks and get Doug's feedback on either that he goes along with your plan after he gets the additional information, and we've got his weigh in on this.
I
Just feel uncomfortable.
I could offer that we could dig it up and let Doug come inspect it, and whatever he needs, we'll give him. I mean, I think I can offer that, if that makes.
That does deal with my concern, and it also is an assurance that pipe is going to last until we can make the relocation and put it in permanent service.
Fred, you have a question?
So would you be happy with leaving it in Doug's hands to approve not only what's been done, but how they propose to move forward? Or do you want to, I don't know whether that'll take more time or less. But
It's kind of what you said to begin with. We could approve it with the idea in mind that he's got to work it out with Doug, and that temporary relocation really ought to be inspected. Laterals are never backfilled in any WPCA jurisdiction without somebody from WPCA coming out and taking a look at it.
Give it a blessing.
And
So we could we make that as a stipulation specific?
So maybe this temporary fix ought to be looked at by Doug, and also any other recommendations that Doug has, you're going to have to comply with. And that way, you get to go ahead and we put some reasonable assurance in place that this gentleman won't be inconvenienced again.
And let me display my ignorance, but isn't there a way to install a new line and then bridge it so that you can drive equipment across without risking breaking it again? Why couldn't you do something like that?
You can cap sewers with concrete. You can install ductile iron instead of SDR 35 PVC. But really, the standard weight PVC is a heavy wall pipe, and if it's buried more than 2 feet, the likelihood that it's going to be damaged is almost nothing. The effective stress on a pipe with 2 feet of cover from any loads on the surface is almost nothing. So
that gets back to the rationale of why change this at all.
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
because it was
that
an
gets back
excavator, I
to
think,
what
yeah.
you just said from an engineering
Yeah.
perspective.
So
Why not?
I feel reasonably assured with what you just outlined, like what you actually had suggested earlier, that either plan would work fine if that temporary pipe is inspected and the applicant has to comply with what WPCA tells him to do. And I think you've got a reasonable assurance in place that this temporary relocation will last until the permanent pipe is put in place there's gonna be some minor inconvenience when you switch the lines over. That's gonna happen anyway.
That's gonna happen regardless.
That's gonna happen anyway,
But
but that should be coordinated carefully so it doesn't cause this occupant any inconvenience.
I have some questions. Oh, yeah.
What is the timeline? Like, we're all assuming, like, what is the timeline for getting, if you were to go forward with the patch, finish your construction before you put in the new sewer line, have it hooked up, ready to go, what is that timeline?
I think to do the foundation, frame it, put the roof on, side it, and kind of have the equipment out of there would be the 3 months. So it would kind of coincide with April, May, where the asphalt plants would be open. We can go do we can do the cut. And what we would do is we would go out in the road and we start at the at the sewer main, work our way right up the property line, and we'd get all the way to where it crosses the property line and then just tie it in. It would be not instantaneous, but it would be pretty close, a couple hours.
And let me just ask another question. Again, given today's supply chain issues that builders are having left and right of things being delayed, all those logistics associated with acquiring the material, et cetera, for you to finish what you need to do on that house, is that a guarantee of 3 months, or could it be 6 months, or could it be 9 months?
Well, my client is in the business of getting stuff built in a timely manner, and if he doesn't, then he's not making money. So I would say 3 to 4 months I can't guarantee anything, because one, but he's expressed no concern about materials for this job to me. He's got the labor set up to go.
Again, the reason I'm asking this is because it's a temporary patch. I'm not an engineer, right? But, is it 3 months, if it's 4 months, if it's 6 months, does it matter if it's temporary? I don't know.
If it's done well,
Should-
which is why I agree that it should be inspected in one way or another. But a well-done patch is as permanent as the rest of the line potentially.
That's is right to go. How much traffic is on Oakwood,
On the street itself,
on the street? How many houses are on?
it's a dead end as far as I know, so there's not someone else might know better than I do,
Are there
but
10 houses? 20? Okay, we have 15 houses. Okay, and where would the cut be made in the road? All the way across, halfway across, a third of the way across?
it looks like it's about a little more than halfway across.
It looks like it's about a little.
Well, I can get my scale out. Hold on a second. I can bring this over if you. All right, so so this is the one. So the road in that area is about 24 feet wide,
Here to here.
curb to curb, and then looks like the main is at about 14 and a half feet from, so for a little more than 14 feet out of 24. So when you're digging down 8 or 9 feet in that area, you're pretty much going to have the whole road opened up.
Right, straight up, right?
Yes, sir. And then it just angles slightly to connect.
We're in the middle of January. We're in the middle of January. We haven't had a real frost. I don't think we're really going to get a hard frost. Why not do the line now as it's supposed to be done in the beginning? Patch as best you can. You're going to have a curb cut later on in the project, right, to come back and repave the other driveways you're going to be putting in.
Oh, yeah, yep, you're right.
And then you, in the spring, you do a nice patch that's nicey nice, but you do the best you can now and put some plates over it. And unfortunately, 15 people may have to drive over a plate in the road if it's that bad a cut. cut. And I think if the line's 2 feet down, it should be safe. If it's
It's
not,
deeper than 2 feet in the road, and there's.
I mean,
there's really
climbing
no-
up, up to between the houses and all the
Yeah.
construction, that's the problem. And these guys are gonna have to be careful driving over it, or,
Oh, I don't think we're gonna be allowed to put plates in the road in the winter.
Well, you know
But
what I
Public
mean.
Works, what's that?
make it as best, I'm inclined to.
Well, it's not really up to us. I'm guessing Public Works is gonna weigh in on it, and they're not gonna want, one, they may not want even the curb cut or the cut done then, but they're definitely not gonna want plates put in the road in the
Yeah.
winter, in the winter
Right, well, that
time.
makes sense,
so.
you're right, for snow, but I mean,
And similarly with a patch that, I mean, we've all seen temporary patches on trenches in the winter and they just don't hold up, especially with snow and snow plows. So, I don't think that's, to be honest with you, I just don't think it's an option for us to do it. I mean, to do the sewer tie-in in January. This doesn't make sense. Yeah, the weather's been okay, but could turn next week. It's supposed to be colder. I just don't see that as a probable, and I don't think it makes the most sense for this project. But
do you wanna
I
vote
think-
on this, Keith?
Yeah, I would need a vote to decide to change the stipulation or leave it as is.
Keith, would there be a way, and I think I asked earlier, but I'm not sure, could we make stipulations if we voted to change it? You know, add on to
Well,
have
you,
that.
you
that
could,
cut.
because you could, they've asked for the stipulation to be reworded a certain way, but you could vote to reword it in a different way to account for what you're thinking of.
So we could consider rewording it. I think there was earlier discussion to make sure the sewer folks inspected that temporary, repaired patch as part of that. And then also make a stipulation that any, the sewer person's concerns would be addressed before they proceeded with the work.
yeah, we're content with
Yeah.
those changes.
Yeah, I think the stipulation should just simply be that you're approving his plan subject to the
Is this a,
inspection
excuse me, is this,
by WPCA of the temporary repair, and fully coordinating any repairs that have to be done to that temporary repair, and coordinating the future schedule with WPCA, which is what you said at the beginning, and could have avoided.
It's okay.
Yeah, thorough
it's all
discussion.
right, I mean,
I'm very comfortable with that. I think that the applicant raises a good point that a 9-foot deep cut in January with a trench that's not going to compact well, is not going to produce a good pavement repair now or any reasonable time in the future. So I think the complainant in this case that raised his concerns is protected reasonably well by that there won't be reoccurrence. So there's no guarantee that the old sewer wouldn't have collapsed anyway. It's pretty old. But I'm comfortable with that stipulation. So I make a motion that we approve it, subject to the applicant reopening the trench for inspection of the full temporary repair and coordinating all details of the future installation with WPCA to the satisfaction of its director, Doug Miller.
I would second that.
further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Lynn, did you play? Aye.
I didn't say anything. You were so quick. Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Aye. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, and for old business, item 6A, PZ 2126, Cam, Joseph, and Lori LaRosa, coastal area management site plan review application in response to notice of violation 2111 for construction of multiple retaining walls within the CAM designated boundary. Property located at 39 Lindbergh Road, Stonington, Assessors Map 129, Block 1, Lot 4, Zone RM 20. And Mr. Fettis is here for this also.
Good evening, Greg Fettis with Fettis Engineering. I think we left off last time. We were contemplating approving the project, but we didn't have deep sign off. Since that last meeting we were at, we did get a compliance, I think it was an email, I think it's in the package you have before you tonight that says we've satisfied with corrective action the violation. And I think it went further to state that if we do anything bad in the future, that they could come back and reopen the compliance. But I think we've satisfied deep and therefore hopefully the commission. Thank you.
And the recommended stipulations we had for this was, number one, the final plan shall be filed in the town's land evidence records after commission signature. And number two, zoning and building permits shall be submitted for walls over 3 feet in height. And the only vote on this would be for the CAM application.
Any questions for Mr. Fettis or Keith?
Make a motion to approve with the 2 stipulations that Keith just outlined.
Second.
Discussion? Holding back there.
You know, I have a whole problem with building concrete walls, you know, next to the ocean, but we're well beyond that now, so I guess I'd have to just let it go.
Yeah. I too have reservations, and only in that if this was a permit coming to us in the beginning, I have no idea if it would be approved. But here we are, one more time. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Now on to the CAM application.
I'm sorry?
We need to vote on the CAM application?
Oh, I thought you just did.
Did you include the
With the 2
CAM?
stipulations.
I missed the
on it.
CAM.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Yep.
And the other two old business items, item 6B, Latimer Point, and 6B, Suzanne Tosco, Elizabeth Schultz, recommend just tabling till the next meeting. And really, that's it for tonight.
To adjourn.
Do I hear a second? There's a motion to adjourn.
So
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. 8:09. Meeting
Yeah,
closed.
not fast.